Welcome to the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I bring 5 decades experience in the world of comic books and entertainment. I am not some bystander watching the industry go by. I am a full-blown participant, having contributed lasting, memorable works to the world of comic books that have informed the business and the art of this brilliant medium. If it's happening in streaming, in movies, in comic books, in games, we are talking about it, we're discussing it right here. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. Thank you, as always, for joining us wherever you are listening to our show from, wherever that signal emanates, whether it's the Apple, iPod, or Spotify, iHeartRadio, or our YouTube channel. We just thank you so much for tuning in and wanting to talk comics with me. And I just have a great story to tell you today. I've been obsessing over a lot of the history of comic books because, you know, just like the history of anything, entertainment, movies, television, sports, you know, individually, football, basketball, baseball, so much of what has happened in the past informs the future. And today, as we look at what I believe is the most significant figure in the history of comic books, no, it's not Stan Lee, it's Jack the King Kirby. Jack Kirby, if you just casually examine his resume, you will be staggered. And just by the sheer volume of his accomplishments, his workload, his contributions, the dude just gave so much to comics. It is on every panel, on every page, the love that he had for comic books, for storytelling, for world building. Jack isn't my number one most important guy, biggest influence on my work because he's the best artist or the best costume designer or the best storyteller or the best, character creator. He's on it because he's all of those things. He's all of them in one. He was the most complete package in a way that we have never, ever, ever experienced before or since. And this period that we're going to discuss today, that it is so full of relevant lessons for today. If it did not touch what was going on in the comic book world today, I wouldn't be as passionate about it. I wouldn't be bringing it to you in any way, shape, or form. I'm doing this because I really believe there is so much to learn. It was in 1970. I mean, we are exiting the 60s, roaring into the 70s. Now, I missed all of this. I'm not here for any of it. I'm here. I'm 3 years old when Jack joins up with DC Comics. His books actually, let me see what I wrote down here. His books actually start launching in 70. But at the end of 69, early 1970, Jack leaves Marvel Comics. He's had enough. If you listen to our 500th episode where I read quotes from different people, you could hear in Roz's voice as she abruptly, contributes, jumps in front of some of the answers with Jack as he's has an interview in the Comics Journal with Gary Groth. She jumps and says, because they were paying us better. They paid us more. And then she they let you do whatever they you wanted. There was a lot of resentment that had built up between Jack Kirby and everybody at Marvel Comics. Jack had also left the East Coast, moved out west, where he would kind of live the rest of his life in Southern California. And the Marvel offices were squarely planted in the middle of New York City. And you talk about the guys and the gals who were doing work at Marvel at the time, and they talked about how important it was to be adjacent. Howard Chaykin, Jim Starlin, George Perez. John Byrne couldn't believe that he was able to do his work from Canada. He'd fly in and want to hit the offices to just, be familiar. Dave Cockrum worked on site. So many guys felt the need to drop by the Marvel offices physically to pick up work, to maybe extend the work that they already had, to stay fresh, to stay familiar. Jack knew that he had built an entire universe. And in case you're wondering, again, Thor, Loki, Balder, Hogan, Fandral, Sif, you know, Ulik, uh, I mean, Odin, Hercules, the entire basically God section of Marvel is provided in those visuals. The words that I just threw at you, they're not just great names; they're incredible visuals. The costuming, the armor, and we're going to really get more of that when he goes to DC. It's probably why I love the work in the way that I do. Thor was just one book. Then you got Hulk. He launched it. He was there. Uh, he was adjacent to the launch of Iron Man. He is the artist on Fantastic Four #1 and Avengers #1 and X-Men #1. Think about that. Just think about that. X-Men and Avengers came out the same day, by the way, the same day in history. So Jack is, I'm just kind of skipping the rest because I mean, look at how overwhelming that already is. Ant-Man, Wasp, the entire concept of the X-Men, Magneto. I mean, all in one issue. You got Charles Xavier, Cyclops, Beast, Angel, Iceman, Jean Grey, Magneto. I mean, the guy is a force. All of these characters are instantly recognizable. They take up giant space in the comic book mythos almost upon instantly arriving. In the very first appearance of Spider-Man, Amazing Fantasy, that cover is penciled by Jack Kirby, inked by Steve Ditko. While he had nothing to do with creating Spider-Man, I know that he has his own version of that, but I think history will see that one is kind of outside the realm of his influence in the way that Fantastic Four, Avengers, X-Men, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and of course Captain America, who predates Marvel, completely predates Marvel. So you've got this incredible list of contributions, and of course I'm leaving so many villains. I mean, just Doctor Doom. I mean, the Frightful Four, Atuma, all of the Fantastic Four Rogues Gallery, Mole Man. I'm not even like going to sit here and list all these characters off because it's just we'd be here all day. His list of contributions to Marvel Comics was so staggering, and what I believe happened, what built up over the years, was a resentment. I think they took him for granted. I think he went out west to get away, to start a new life, to be on the West Coast with the sun. He told me, he would tell me how much he loves Southern California. That's why they never even considered going back. He built a life, and his extended family all were generated here. The grandkids, the nieces, Jack literally, spread his seed out here in Southern California. And when he left, I think it was hurt feelings, a feeling of that they took him for granted. You guys, most comic book artists, illustrators that I know, they struggle. Including myself, to do a page a day, to complete a page a day. Jack would do 3 to 4 a day. When literally sitting across from him at the table that he drew all these pages from in Thousand Oaks, California, he would say, and I've repeated this again, it bears worth repeating. I'd say, how'd you do it? He said, I had to pay the rent. I had to provide for my family. Minimum of 3 pages a day. If I had to do 4, I'd do 4. If I had to work weekends, I'd work weekends. The guy was so devoted to his craft. And maybe there were people at Marvel, maybe, again, I'm just putting this out there, who thought, I mean, we got Jack exactly where we want him. He's in California. He's got to deliver. He's got to bring us all these pages every day. Like, Jack's just on automatic. He's not going to give us any trouble. Whatever conflicts that had been, building up, Jack finally snapped, and Carmen Infantino, who is most famous for his incredible contributions to the Flash mythos. He's a giant Silver Age pioneer, legendary for really, really mostly the Flash. He would become one of my favorite Star Wars artists when I was a kid, especially the issues that Terry Austin inked. But this is all later on. This is late 70s. But at this point, early 70s, Carmine Infantino was the EIC at DC Comics. He knew Jack. They had come up together. They were familiar. He knew Joe Simon. He knew Jack Kirby. He had made overtures. What if you came over here? We'd let you do whatever you wanted. Roz Kirby, you could do whatever you want. There were giant full-page ads once the deal was done, and I can only give you a glimpse of what Jack was thinking. He's laid down his thoughts about where he was with Marvel at the time, all across a multitude of interviews. But if you had ever sat with him, talked with him, gone to one of his panels, he would just say he was not happy with Marvel, his conditions at Marvel. He felt he was taken for granted. He wasn't given the credit. He will tell you that he was writing those issues that he didn't get credit on, and that Stan was kind of no more than a glorified scripter. And I think if I were to look at the evidence and we were presented to a jury, a very carefully selected jury that came without bias, I believe Jack would win every argument. That's my opinion. I've told you guys, I have done, if you're new to the show, and what I just said is heresy, because my wife, my kids, we all experienced over the last 15 years how Stan Lee was so marketed, God bless him, he was out there, he was hitting the pavement, he was going everywhere. Stan Lee kept a signing schedule, and some of it was abuse. Some of it was him not being able to say no, and you've seen some of that in some footage that we've all seen, where he just doesn't want to go places, but there were handlers that had successfully positioned themselves around him that were manipulating him. And I would be sitting there in my 40s not understanding how he was doing what he was doing in his 70s. Okay, like what is going on here? This guy is, but he went out there. He was very visible. He had the cameos. You saw Stan Lee. People to this day would still say, isn't it incredible that Stan wrote and drew all those comics for Marvel? That's your first red flag that you're talking to someone who is completely uninformed, uneducated, and really ignorant of comic books. The minute that they think that Stan drew anything, ever, it's sad because people do. To this day, you will casually mention and someone will think, and look, it's not without boners on Marvel's part. Maybe 7 years ago, they put out together a Captain America one-shot that proudly pronounced that Captain America was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and I flipped out online, as did many people. It's Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, but the malaise and kind of the let's just call it the state of the dummies, the state of the dumbos had taken over some people's mindsets. I mean, I'm like, what are you doing? This is like, this credit is way too big to be so wrong. Okay. The myth of Stan Lee started overshadowing everything. Now, I've also said in a logic space, it's because Jack isn't here. Jack is no longer with us. In the same way, my favorite NBA player of all time, I didn't say the greatest. I think he's number 2. I think Michael Jordan is number 1. Kobe Bean Bryant is no longer with us to battle the naysayers. I always love when so many of the NBA players, Kevin Durant included, like, will tell you that he's their favorite. He thinks that that Kobe was the best, that they came up loving him and idolizing him. And there is generations that will keep that out there. But time waits for no man, and especially when an unfortunate passing happens, like Jack, like Kobe, there will be people who are eager to rewrite history, eager to grab a piece of history that doesn't necessarily belong to them. Whether he meant it or not, the myth of Stan became so much that Stan wrote and drew Spider-Man, kind of omitting Steve Ditko, and he wrote and drew the Fantastic Four. People think he wrote and drew comics. I've had them literally to my face tell me this, and it is so sad. But they just believe Stan Lee created the Marvel Universe all by himself. I think Jack had felt enough of that, that I think he really felt it was important that he break away and go do this very ambitious line of comic books with DC. Now, right off the bat, people debate whether the New Gods, the Fourth World, which is the New Gods saga, is the blanket that they call it. I pulled mine out. The omnibus is far too cumbersome, and the giant absolute edition is too cumbersome. These came out about, I want to say 15, 16 years ago. if you can get the Jack Kirby's, don't you love how DC? I mean, well, this is so great. Jack Kirby's Fourth World omnibuses. These might be the ones that fit the best on your shelf. I'm holding these up to you guys. Omnibus volume 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all mashed up in here as I hold them. These are the most accessible. Look at that killer shot of Darkseid right there. Look at that. Look at that. Oh. This killer shot of the Forever People. Okay. Orion. And you know that the last one of first, let's just dwell on how great Orion looks here. Okay. And then Mr. Superstar himself, Mr. Miracle. Okay. Mr. Miracle. Okay. Jack, very ambitious line of books. They didn't make it long. They weren't around long. They were kind of cut down in their prime due to apparently low sales. But the characters themselves have a footprint deeper than these initial books. They went on to become giant stars across the DC universe. Almost immediately, their impact never left. They continued to shine bright throughout the the DC universe. But when Carmen went to him, he basically gave him again, as Roz Kirby said, more money, paid him more, and said you can do whatever you want. And Jack ended up turning out his first big swing, and also Jimmy Olsen. The Jimmy Olsen books are in there, and that was his first bite at the apple. And those start coming out in 1970. He starts telling you this sprawling saga. We call it the Fourth World Saga. It's Mr. Miracle. It's the Forever People. It's the New Gods. It's Jimmy Olsen. And it's a big spanning saga that kind of sweeps through all the books. They all are fairly connected. And there are some who have criticized that it was too difficult to follow all of them because they were, to that I say, poppycock. To that I say, not even a chance. They're brilliant. Sometimes things are just ahead of their time. And I firmly believe these books were ahead of their time. And Jack leaving, DC wrote gave a big double page ads. They gave single page ad. Kirby is coming to DC. I mean, they announced it. They wanted you to know. They wanted comic book readers to know. But here's the problem, and here's, for me, the first tether to what's going on in today's market. When Jack left to go to DC, what he, I don't believe, realized, and I don't think anyone truly realized it, but it was about to get tested. It was this theory was about to be, put up against real world analytics. The universe that he had spent, the better part of a decade building was now the predominant universe in the comic book world. The kids preferred Marvel. The readership had moved to Marvel. Stan knew it. He was out there on the college circuit. He was telling everybody how important the Marvel comics were. The incredible plus 100 issue run of Fantastic Four that is so celebrated and glorified and goated that Jack did. The Thor, incredible Thor work. His contributions to X-Men, to Avengers, again to Hulk, all of the mini covers that he was doing. Obviously, his Captain America work, which he was back doing Cap in the mid '60s, doing great, incredible Captain America stories. His Nick Fury Shield stuff. I mean, all of this. And we've talked about how Fantastic Four alone launched Black Panther, The Inhumans, Silver Surfer, Galactus. Oh my gosh! I mean, it's phenomenal. Between all of Jack's work, Steve Ditko's work, Romita Sr., John Buscema, the world had turned to Marvel as its preeminent comic book company. And in the 70s, as we were entering into the early 70s, Stan had put out some edicts via Roy Thomas, because Stan followed Jack out to LA to start building up TV and movie connections and trying to get cartoons and live action television shows off the ground. So Roy Thomas was kind of left to enact a lot of Stan's interests. And what was going on is that Stan started telling people, I don't want multi-issue stories. I want single-issue stories. I want new characters. This is where you got Kangaroo Man and some of these other very strange characters in the Spider-Man books. He thought multi-arc stories were problematic. He wanted everything to be one issue, one off, meet the villain, beat the villain, move on, next, rinse, repeat every issue. And when this didn't work, they immediately said, "We made a mistake. Go back." They were trying to find their footing. All of publishing was suffering in the early 1970s. Marvel may have been the belle of the ball, but the ball was musty. The pipes were leaky, you know, and the foundation was cracking. Over at DC, prior to getting Jack Kirby, and here is where you have to really examine the conditions when Jack signed on. Even with all the muscle that they brought, being the publishers of Superman and Batman, they were on very shaky ground. They had lost a ton of market share to Marvel Comics, as was just anyone who was there at the time. Jim Valentino could tell you at the time. All of his preferences. A guy like him who, like he said, he was 10 years old. He was crucial. I know what that's like. I was 9 when I saw Star Wars, 1977. Saw a movie that changed the world, okay? Jim Valentino, guys his age, he saw Marvel Comics change the world. The characters were younger, hipper, cooler. I think that they had more emphasis on real-world action. The Superman and the Batman Silver Age stories, they were kind of weird. They had weird things happening to their tummies. Their girlfriends were mermaids. There was a lot of the Silver Age stuff, while wildly imaginative, wasn't exactly grounded. And Marvel Comics had proved that even with a book that was as, incredibly imaginative as Fantastic Four, it was grounded. You guys, my very first comic book, Jack is at DC when I'm entering comic books at 7 years old. Fantastic Four 147 is drawn like Jack Kirby drew it. It's drawn by Rich Buckler, doing a very Jack Kirby style. In some pages in that book, it's been pointed out to me, it doesn't change my love for it one iota. The panels are direct imitations of earlier Fantastic Four drawings by Jack. But in my first Fantastic Four comic, you guys, Reed has been served divorce papers. The opening of Fantastic Four 147, Reed is dealing with the fallout of his marriage. Sue is divorcing him. She is leaving him. What are they going to do? They have a kid. What's going on? Medusa from the Inhumans is joined. In this issue, they go to pick a fight with Namor, where Sue has left. She's shacked up with Prince Namor. Now, the end of the story, which is a couple issues later, has a really bizarre twist. I won't blow it for you. I think I did a Rob-topsy on this. For those of you who are early, I'm going to get back to doing more Rob-topsies. They were very studious. I took a year or a section or an entire run of comics, and I really went deep into what made that certain run as special as it was. What were the high points, the attributions of the creators at the time, kind of the way the comics grew. I did this era of Fantasy Four because it was so fun, and I had a blast. And on page 1, Reed is getting divorced. He's got stubble. He's depressed. He doesn't want to go out. It's up to Johnny and Ben to kind of keep things moving. And in the end, like, to Reed's face, Namor with Sue by his side, she's like, "I'm staying in Atlantis. I'm never coming back to you." I'm 7 years old reading this going, this is a book about two divorced. The two stars of the book are divorcing. They're separated. They are headed, their marriage is on the rocks. Okay, that's kind of grounded. That reeks of 1974, okay? I mean, we later, a couple years later, 5 years later, 4 years later, get a giant movie that got award contention called Kramer versus Kramer, an entire movie with Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep about getting divorced. I mean, it was the Marvel comics were more grounded. They had more things that I think people, especially the readership, could relate to. Broken homes, struggling households, families. I always felt like Peter Parker couldn't get a break. And the DC Comics and the Silver Age era had kind of pushed them further back, and Marvel had taken the lead. But even some of the ways that Carmen Infantino had tried to heal DC Comics during that time, he had put an emphasis on some of their spacefaring books, where there was Adam Strange, Green Lantern, because sci-fi had become a thing. Sci-fi had become a thing in cinema. You had Star Trek on in the mid to late 60s on TV. You had science fiction was taking the culture, the Planet of the Apes. You know, these movies were starting to become defining for an entire era, for an entire viewership and readership. And so he tried to steer them into more of a sci-fi and space and interplanetary direction, and none of it had worked. DC was in quite a bad place sales wise, which is why they went all in on. They wanted you to know that the architect of Marvel was coming to them, and he was going to build all new cool stuff. And then Jack said, "Oh, I got this entire incredible world here, where we got to meet Darkseid, and Orion, and Light Ray, and Big Barda, and Mr. Miracle." And I'm going to tell you something. I discovered the Fantastic Four. I'm sorry. I discovered the Forever People. The Forever People comic was a comic that I got in back issues at a convention because I just liked how they looked visually. When I was 15 years old at a local con, I was able to buy like 8 of the Forever People comic books, and I loved how Mark Moonrider looked, how Beautiful Dreamer, how Big Bear, all of these incredible characters. I loved Viking. I mean, I loved how all of them looked, and the villains, and the movement, and the staging, but mainly the costuming. You guys, I mean, is it really that hard? Here, I've got a Jack. Look at this. This looks like Jack Kirby. This was a line of 4 or 5 New Gods action figures that I'm holding up to the camera. If you're on YouTube and you see, I'm holding up Light Ray. I mean, can you not see the resemblance to Shaft? I mean, Jack's and Mark Moonrider had a very similar mask. Jack's costuming dynamics have affected my entire career. Everything I do is affected mainly by Jack's fourth world work. It had the most profound impact on me, the way the characters look, the armoring of just a casual soldier on New Genesis or on Apocalypse. I elevator pitched my wife the New Gods 2 weeks ago. Highfather, Darkseid, Orion, Mr. Scott Free, the baby swap. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but it is a saga. And Joy's like, I would see that movie. That I didn't know that. That's great. New Gods had tremendous depth. It had tremendous illustrations. And I think there was just bad timing for those characters and that world to be out at a time where Marvel was the pace horse. And DC Comics, what I'm trying to beat around the bush here is DC Comics had become decidedly uncool, and their appeal had been lost on that generation of youth. And you're like, were youth really buying comics from spinner racks? Right here, hand up, barbershop, spinner racks. As I said, and I've said many times, and if you've never listened to me before, in the 1970s, the glorious Broadway and Magnolia cross streets, cross section, the Four Corners, Pizza Hut, 7-Eleven, liquor store, Stater Brothers, which was the grocery store. Stater Brothers, the grocery store, the liquor store, and 7-Eleven all had ample comic book selections, spinner racks, shelves, treasury editions, magazines. It was literally 3 blocks up the street on a skateboard, on a bike. And yes, if you can believe that 7 and 8-year-olds were free to roam in that way, they were. The 70s were not as, we weren't hovering over our kids in the way that we do today. And I say that for myself. I'm not sure that I would have let my kids bike ride away. But by 9 and 10, I was cool because that's what I did. But I'm telling you, once I got the bug for comics and I knew where to find them and locate them, they were everywhere. I'd go to the grocery store just to go with my mom, just to go look at comics, even if I couldn't buy them. I would make sure I went to the church with my dad because I knew he was going to stop and get a coffee at 7-Eleven so I could get comics. The liquor store was I've told you, my dominion. No one went there. The 7-Eleven across the street had the same stuff. And my dad's a pastor, didn't frequent the liquor store, but little Robbie Liefeld loved it. And the owners loved me. And I spent some mad coin there, okay? When I talk about anything that was happening from about 1975 to 1978, it is me and the liquor store making sweet love, okay? I am just like loving on that store and grabbing comics off the spinner racks and treasury editions and Superman, Muhammad Ali, Superman, Spider-Man, my favorite Jim Shooter Avengers comics, Giant Size X-Men #1. I mean, this is a formidable time. When I did my entire episode devoted to the champions, where do you think I discovered Marvel's champions of Hercules, of Ghost Rider, Black Widow, Iceman, and Angel at the liquor store? So if you're like, wait, Is that where the youth was getting them? There were no comic stores. I'd never even heard of a comic book store until I was 12 or 13 years old. And by that time, my addiction for this stuff had been running 6, 7 years. Hot, very hot. All free money, all extra cash was going to fuel my comic book addiction. So the New Gods are coming out. I'm encountering Jack Kirby's OMAC and Commandy when I come in. He is the New Gods are gone. He is in his phase of telling Commandy, which is his longest running DC work, which is them saying, "Hey, Jack, we know the Fourth World didn't work out. Could you give us something like ruthlessly commercial?" And Jack kind of looked in the direction of the Planet of the Apes, put his own twist on it. Commandy was born, his longest, most successful comic, and one of his best ever, even up against his Marvel stuff. But the DC not cool factor, DC was just a brand that people were not checking out with the same fervor. And this is where I'm going to draw the connection. I believe that what DC was in 1970, Marvel Comics is today in 2026. They haven't been cool for a while. The cool has shifted to Books and Image Comics, Invincible, Battle Beast, Transformers, and to DC Comics, Everything Absolute, and then pick another favorite out of there, okay? We ended the year, I shared it here, and it was one of many retailers who were doing interviews, who were doing clips on TikTok, and they were saying, I never thought in my entire life that I would live in a period where DC was cooler than Marvel. Marvel is not cool. At this point in time, I cannot tell you a hit Marvel comic book. When it happens, we'll discuss it. I'll discuss it. We'll discuss the writing, the drawing, the covers, all of it. Since 2026 started, the 6 weeks we've been in 2020, they've tried to launch new directions for new titles with new number ones, and there's a bunch more coming, and no one, and I mean no one that I know, and I know a lot of people who love comics, no one gives a shit. Marvel is DC 1970s. And right now, Marvel is like, how do we get some of that absolute juice? How do we get some of that skybound juice? Okay? It is a totally different era than we were in even 5-6 years ago. DC has taken the wheel. Marvel is in the back seat. Skybound is riding shotgun in the front. And this reminds me of what was going on. And I'll tell you, the fact that Jack's books were a little ahead of their time, no matter how resonant they were and how much impact they were having with the people who absolutely loved them, DC Comics just weren't selling, period. They were dropping books like flies. Stuff wasn't landing. And this would just be a precursor for what was going to be called the DC implosion, on the back of them planning to do the DC explosion, because they had entire comic book lines wiped out. I've heard all sorts of theories as to why the implosion happened in 1978. Just about 6 years after Jack's books ended, DC had a glorious plan to be more competitive, and that also blew up in their face. They just had a bad decade. We're going to do a podcast soon about the man, and I'll give you a glimpse of the man who changed DC more than anyone changed DC in the 80s, because he was, like Jack, the embodiment of everything that was raw Marvel. And that gentleman is George Perez, and I'm going to show something of his, because when George depicts the Fourth World and the New Gods and Darkseid in the summer of 1980, this is only about 7 years after the glow of Jack's Fourth World stuff has waned. And even still, they did a Return of the New Gods book. Don Newton did the art, Jerry Conway. DC tried to, because they saw the genius in Jack's work. I mean, how do you not with Darkseid? Darkseid became the first and biggest breakout, and I'm gonna share with you why here in a minute. But I just want to land the plane of the timing was terrible. DC's prior moves before they got Jack were stalling out and weren't connecting. So even with Jack, and here's something that I got to cover before I wrap that portion up. Marvel will tell you, well, yes, it did happen. Spokespeople for Marvel have confirmed, yes, this did happen, but it wasn't for the reason you think. I've talked on this show before about when I got into comics in 1974. There were all manner of reprint books. The Kirby Fantastic Fours were being reprinted alongside the Rich Buckler, the George Perez, the John Byrne Fantastic Fours. The Ditko and Romita Senior Spider-Mans were being reprinted monthly in a book called Marvel Tales. The Fantastic Four book was called World's Greatest Comics. The Romita, the highlights of Ditko and Romita Senior were coming out alongside the Ross Andrew Spider-Mans that I was encountering. The Jack Kirby Avengers were coming out alongside the George Perez Avengers. You could get this glimpse of before and after. Marvel's past and Marvel's present were always out there. They initiated this in 1970. They started repackaging all of Jack's work. Why do you think that is? DC's putting out double page ads. We've got Jack. The King has come to DC. I think Marvel said, "Oh yeah, we got the King." At one point, I wrote some notes here. At one point, when the New Gods launches, the New Gods and Forever People come out in February 1971. By March 1971, Marvel has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Jack Kirby reprint books that are on the market. Among those reprint books is the Marvel's Greatest Comics, the Fantastic Four. They had the Nick Fury reprints, Sergeant Fury reprints, Creature on the Loose, and Kirby covers were on many of these. So you're looking at DC has 4 Kirby comics, Marvel has 10, okay? All of Marvel's Kirby work, they opened the floodgates. They say it wasn't to stunt Jack over at DC, except it kind of was. I think if they were being honest, I think if Stan Lee, if we put the golden lasso on Stan Lee, he'd be like, hell yeah! That's why he was doing it. It goes on and on and on. Imagine, a big actor. Imagine The Pit, okay? Kind of ER adjacent. Noah Wiley winning awards. Imagine The Pit launching on a PBS channel while the major networks, a major broadcast network or a giant Netflix dropped every season of ER at one time with giant advertising. That's what Jack was up against. Wait, my hospital drama has to go up against my previous great hospital drama of all time. It was a blunt move, and it carries on for every single, literally, here's the deal. In 1972, Forever People 11 and New Gods 11, you've got Marvel's Greatest Heroes, you've got Marvel Superheroes, which had Captain America in it, you had Western Gunfighters, and you had Where Monsters Dwell. 4 major Jack Kirby books at Marvel were coming out, and Cap and Fantastic Four are big. I was buying them. I grabbed them because I couldn't get enough. You mean I get 2 Fantastic Fours? I get 2 Avengers? This element of what was going on when Jack was launching the New Gods and Forever People, and check all this stuff out. Vet all this. I'm bringing you the hardest receipts that could be brought. These dates are final. Like I said, January 1971 is one of the biggest. There's only Jimmy Olsen by Jack Kirby at DC. He won't launch New Gods and Forever People till the next month. But you have Amazing Adventures, Avengers Annual, Captain America Annual, Fear Number 2, Hulk Annual, Marvel Western, Nick Fury, Marvel Special Editions, the Thor Annuals, Tower of Shadows, Where Creatures Roam, and Where Monsters Dwell. And every one of those titles I just told you featured a Jack Kirby reprint. Had a Jack Kirby story of Thor, of Fantastic Four, of Captain America, of the Western characters. The Western characters were still a big deal. Think about what was going on, because you're like, Western. In 1972, you've got Gunsmoke, you've got Alias Smith and Jones, and a myriad of other Westerns that I'm just not going to be able to. Maybe the Wild Wild West is winding down. Maybe Maverick is still on. Westerns, Rifleman. You had Lone Ranger reruns all the time when I was growing up. Westerns were a huge deal. So Marvel had a lot of skin in the game when it came to Westerns, with Two Gun Kid, with the Rawhide Kid, with Kid Colt, with Knight Rider. You guys, they had a ton of Western comics. Jack had contributed to many of them. I have the essentials of Jack's Rawhide Kid, of Jack's Two Gun Kid right over here on my shelf that I refer to often. They're a blast. So Jack rolls his comics out at DC, who's not cool, and Marvel's like, hey, you know what we can do? We can start reprinting Jack, till we're blue in the face. And they did. Now, the New Gods continued afterwards. And I'm going to tell you, even though Return of the New Gods, again, in the mid-70s, attempt to relaunch, didn't quite land. It is 1980, George Perez has left Marvel Comics. He is now about to launch Teen Titans, but what he's doing first, because the artist of Justice League America, Dick Dillon, unexpectedly dies. And they asked George if he could step in. Dick Dillon's last issue was the first part of a Justice League, Justice Society, New Gods team up. There was no newsletters or fanzines to alert me to this. I bought Justice League anyway. It was my own dedicated book during that time, because I liked seeing all the heroes together. And sometimes, especially these summertime team-ups in years past, it had been the Legion of Superheroes with the Justice Society and the Justice League. Every summer when I was a kid, the Justice League and the Justice Society would meet and have adventures. And that had been going on for maybe 8 years or longer prior to me stumbling into this in the mid-'70s. And then each year they would, try and do something different. Well, in 1980, with issue Justice League number 183, Dick Dillon, it's his last Justice League issue, and he dies. But the New Gods reach out to the Justice League and the Justice Society. This is the cover to 184, is that correct? And this cover, I got this on the way to church. I couldn't believe this was at the liquor store, okay? The Justice League, look at that Darkseid yelling. All of the Justice League and the New Gods and the Justice Society are positioned. I'm displaying the cover to 184. I stared at this. Darkseid never looked cooler than he did right here. I was like, wow. And that speech that Al Pacino gives as his agent character to Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he says, the way you're seen, the way you're depicted, and if you keep going down and hitting the floor, your career's going to go down with you. The way things are depicted is how we categorize them. And when Darkseid is now on the big stage with the most Marvel penciler of the last decade since Jack, the most Marvel penciler ever, George Perez, who was drawing Avengers and who was drawing X-Men annuals and who was drawing Fantastic Four and Marvel 2-in-1 and the Inhumans, George frickin' Perez was arriving at DC, and he was doing their flagship book, Justice League, and they're battling Darkseid. And the splash page, the splash page of right after that cover, okay, is this giant Darkseid, as the energy is feeding into him, and you can see the other character, Firestorm, Light Ray, they're all kind of hovering. Power Girl, okay? Look at that. It's pure Jack Kirby energy. This story went on to make Darkseid seem like the most formidable villain in both universes. I literally thought, guy, is he like more of a badass than Magneto, than Doctor Doom? I mean, this thing went a long way. It went a very long way in depicting. I'm going to show you this splash page. I remember staring at this. This is in 185. This is George's second issue of Justice League. Look at Darkseid, that splash page with the Injustice gang behind him, because they're being his flunkies in regards to this story. This is just incredible, and it is an amazing depiction of this character. And I was like, what? It blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. And so when that arrived, I was like, my mind is absolutely blown. So I'm sitting here thinking that this is the coolest villain I've ever seen. And he's taken on JSA, JLA, and the New Gods themselves. Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, Light Ray, Orion. Again, how you're seen, how the fans see you and view you and interact with you. Suddenly Darkseid is the most important guy in the DC universe to me. And when you think about it, in the last 20 plus years, and it started in the 80s with the Super Friends cartoon, the Superpower seasons, and around that area, they introduced Darkseid. He had already been in the Justice League, like I showed you here, in 1980, and 4 or 5 years later, now he's on the cartoon. And then he's the biggest villain in the comic books, in the cartoons, in the movies, the entire, whether you liked it or not, $600, $700, $800 million was spent to over a course of films depict Darkseid, whether it was the hint of him coming in Superman Batman or his appearance in the Justice League and then the Snyder Cut. uh, Darkseid was given a big giant glow up. He was thought of as DC, Marvel's Thanos, because Thanos had taken the pole position as the big bad of all time, given his treatment and his depiction in all the big Avengers movies with Endgame and Infinity War. But when I saw Darkseid in this Justice League, and I saw the way the New Gods were depicted, it just elevated them to a level that I had not anticipated that I would respond to. And we don't stop there, because in a few years, just in a couple of years, another giant Marvel name. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna show this Darkseid on the steps one more time. Phenomenal, unbelievable, killer. Okay, one of my favorite depictions of him ever. A couple years later, big old Darkseid is the giant focal point of one of the most popular, celebrated Legion of Superhero storylines ever, called the Great Darkness Saga. They wrote it in such a way that none of us saw it coming. It was such a twist, such a surprise. The big bad behind the curtain, causing all this tumultuous chaos and destruction on behalf of the Legion, was Darkseid in the 30th century. Keith Giffen had come from the Defenders. He had been a guy that I associated with Marvel, and when he left and went over to DC and started doing the Legion, he had my full attention, because, like I said, whatever he had been doing over at Marvel, whether it was his, backup stories with Rocket Raccoon, whether it was the Wood God. I mean, he did some bizarre stuff. He did all manner of like little short stories, but his Defenders run was a biggie for me and my generation, because his depiction of Hulk and Moon Knight and Valkyrie and Nighthawk, that's who was on the team at the time. Defenders 50 is like one of my all-time jams of all time. So Keith Giffen, another guy who had Kirby in his DNA, in the same way that George Perez had Kirby in his DNA, and more Marvel guys were crossing the street and going over to DC. And when George Perez or Keith Giffen did a book at DC, it looked like a Marvel comic book. It felt like a Marvel comic book. They brought Marvel Comics dynamics. And what they both did is they put a giant spotlight on Jack's New Gods Fourth World legacy. And guys like me, they leveled up in our eyes. They absolutely became more important, more resonant. So never let anybody tell you that the New Gods failed. I'm holding another action figure here, Light Ray. We're bringing it back in front of the camera. Darkseid alone has become, I would argue this, he is a bigger villain and threat than especially around the world to the global audience, than Lex Luthor. Joker has got him in terms of notoriety and the Batman adjacency. But right now, what is DC giving you? They're giving you K.O., okay? They're giving you DC K.O., and it is all built around Darkseid, okay? And Darkseid is a giant looming part of the creation of the absolute universe, is again adjacent to Darkseid, okay? It is adjacent to Darkseid, and the this is just crazy. The the footprint that the footprint that Darkseid has provided, and the New Gods now in the DC universe ongoing, is a testimony to the greatness of Jack Kirby. New Gods in the Fourth World weren't this giant this giant success story right off the bat. But boy, oh boy, this baby has had some legs. And another reason, as I say, that I think Marvel is now the company that is looking up at its competition in the same way that DC was looking up at them, in that same way, in that same manner, I believe that another relevant aspect of this Kirby lesson, when he goes over, he's welcomed with open arms, but the timing isn't right. Marvel responds with massive reprints of Kirby's work so that you have umpteen amounts of covers and Jack Kirby interiors. And so, yeah, like that DC book kind of looks like this over here. And again, Marvel had the microphone. Marvel had the platform. Something else that I believe, upon really digging into this stuff and really exploring all of the mythos, is when Jack left, it was seen in real time as his books didn't take off. He didn't become a factor. The Marvel Comics universe moved on without him. And I think ultimately Marvel viewed it as like we triumphed over that. Jack, our chief architect, our numero uno, the biggest world builder of all, they look down and they see that they weathered what could have possibly been the biggest storm that they could have encountered at the time. And in retrospect, I now believe that when we all exited Marvel Comics in 1992 to start Image Comics, it explains why so many of the people at Marvel Comics said, "You're going to fail." They told us straight up, direct, looked right at us in person to Jim Lee's face and mine, standing next to each other. "You guys are going to fail. You guys aren't going to succeed." The scripter, the notorious scripter, was the loudest among everyone who said, "You guys are not going to succeed. It's a nightmare." Jim Valentino kind of alluded to this as well. Wolves Portacio alluded to this away. There was hostility, but there was also kind of this idea that they'll come crawling back in 2 years because they will be abject failures. No, what happened is you're going to fly out in your big planes and you're going to give Jim and I $300,000 signing bonuses to come and restore the Jack Kirby legacy books like Captain America and Fantastic Four that were stumbling so bad. That's actually how that story went, not the way that they thought it was going to go, in that, oh my gosh, Youngblood is a failure, Wildcats is a failure, Spawn is a failure, we have to come back and do Spider-Man, X-Men, and X-Force. I believe they were looking at a model based on the Jack Kirby 1970. Nobody was bigger than Jack. And when he left, it didn't work. Not in the short term. In the long term, I think we've established it was a phenomenal success, and the imprint grows each and every day. But I think they looked at us like, these guys are going to completely get curb stomped, and they are not going to succeed, and they'll be back, and we'll be sitting here because they can't compete with the titles that they were on. In my instances, I've always told you, I'm the architect of Cable and Deadpool and X-Force. So, like, with that book is part of my DNA. So I didn't feel like I was competing with it at all. I was going to go do more. The X-Men had a long-standing history. The Spider-Man had a long-standing history of being the top-selling book. X-Men, the top-selling book. Those are the two top-selling franchises across 30 years for Marvel Comics. X-Force was this weirdo anomaly that I manifested. So I'm not sure that there was a... after I left, they tried to make it look like I was still there. They told Mark Pacella, they told Capullo, draw like Liefeld. Make the book still look like Liefeld so that the fans will still feel at home. They'll still be warming by the fire, which we've established here again and again and again. Marvel did with John Romita Sr., draw like Steve Ditko for 6 issues. John Romita Sr., draw like Jack Kirby on Fantastic Four for 6 issues. They always wanted to bridge very quietly because they wanted to carry the interest. They didn't want to disrupt the flow. I see now differently how they believed history was on their side. That, this uppity group of creators is going to go across the street just like Jack did, just like Jack. Because you can put Todd and Jim and me all in one, box, and we're not going to measure up to Jack. We're not Jack Kirby. We don't have his legacy at Marvel, and we never will. So I'm sure they just laughed it off. A bunch of guys who are trending, who are not going to trend afterwards because Jack stopped trending. And then, of course, they reached out. They said, "Jack, would you like to come back? It's the anniversary of America, the bicentennial. It'd be great to have you back on Captain America." And Jack went back and spent 1975 to 1978, maybe the end of 78, early 79, at Marvel again. And then he went off and did the creator-owned stuff and brought you Captain Victory. And we're going to do a deep dive into Captain Victory at some point too. This Kirby studies, the Kirby Chronicles. We are going to go deep into this. This man left more lessons experiences, influence, impact than any other creator ever will hope to leave. And I trail off because I think of today's creators, and I think of how unfortunate it is that they didn't get to break bread with Jack. They didn't get to wine and dine with him. They didn't get to sit on a panel with him. They didn't get to sit next to him, walk through the halls of San Diego with him and Roz, go to the parties with him. He really was a phenomenal presence, talent, and he represented everything that we love about comics. He's a scrapper. He's your Stan, for all intents and purposes, was the people who own Marvel were his family. They were part of his family. Jack's the scrapper. Jack's the underdog. Jack's the Peter Parker. Jack's, the X-Men. The guy that everyone is underestimating. And I think everybody who ever underestimated Jack Kirby learned you can't. The Kirbys don't like to talk about it because they want to just dwell on the fact that they, eventually got a settlement from Marvel post Jack, post Roz, but they were suing them for almost 2 decades, across 2 decades. Because Marvel had treated him with that much disrespect and treated him that poorly. And to act like everything's chummy and happy, I don't need to. I don't think Jack, maybe Jack never shines, but maybe he does because of his kids and his grandkids and wants to take care of them. But he was the original scrapper, the original guy. As he said to me, Rob, I have to produce this amount of work because I have to take care of my family. Marvel took him for granted. He went in, he worked his magic. That magic continues to resonate. That magic continues to be seen on the toy shelves, on the game shelves, in the cartoons, in the movies. We are so not done with the fourth world. I asked Jim Lee in 2018, it was about 6 weeks before the Deadpool 2 movie, and I met with Jim at WonderCon, and I said, give me the New Gods. Let me have the fourth world. Let me, tell my story. And he was very confident. No. No. We're not going to go down that route, and that didn't happen. It took a lot for me to ask. I anticipated it wouldn't go my way, but I had to. I love this stuff that much. I would have loved to have danced and played in that playground. Unfortunately, that time is over. That time is gone. And yet those characters, whenever I pick up these books, whenever I engage with them, whenever I look at the Forever People or Orion or Light Ray or Beowulf, okay? Calabac, all of these characters, they just resonate with me. I love these characters in such a phenomenal way. I think these designs, I think all of them stand the test of time. Darkseid is a great looking character today. Nearly, good God. 56 years later, he is phenomenal looking. Jack Kirby, we're going to continue this discussion, but today I just wanted to share again. I think his story is adjacent to how Image Comics was viewed. Those guys, troublemakers, they're going to fail. They did that based on Kirby. I see it now. The timing was terrible. Everything that DC was touching was turning to coal. Jack had an uphill battle because DC Comics had become your grandpa's comics. They had become like a rash. They had become books that people were no longer seeking out. Marvel was the sexy universe, and Jack helped build it. And they had a volume of Jack's work that they emptied out, loaded up, and poured out into the comic book ether so that we could all compete with that supply while Jack's trying to get his DC stuff off the ground. It's a very interesting study in time, what was going on in the culture, what happened with all the reprints that Marvel unleashed against Jack and the Fourth World and all these new titles that he had. I'm so glad that Jack went to DC. I don't believe for 1 minute that Jack regretted it. I think he was glad to prove a point that he was an idea factory, OMAC, Demon. I'm blanking, but Commandy. Again, huge properties followed. Jack just kept saying, I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever. Whether it's OMAC or Light Ray, Orion, Mark Moonrider, all of these different characters, his warriors were just something that I would revel in. Nobody drew warriors' armaments. Nobody drew big battlefields. I tried to. I have no problem sharing this with you. I think I may have shared it one more time, one time before. One of the times I was up over at the Kirby's, I was told if I wanted some stuff to bring a fat wad of cash, I did, and I didn't want to miss out. I did not want to, you know, I wanted to be able to seize the moment when and if that opportunity came, and it did. It came. Roz Kirby led me into the room, said, "Here's all the different cabinets of Jack stuff. If you why don't you look through it, tell us what you're interested in." My favorite. I'm just trying to make sure I have. I want to give you a visual here, so I'm flipping through these. All right, I'm pretty. So that's going to be in probably book 3. This is book 3. There was my favorite issue of the New Gods was assembled in an envelope. The whole thing. I literally was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I am looking at this incredible piece of work. And this was New Gods, issue 7. I believe it was called The Gift. And The Pact, The Pact. And this is the splash page of The Pact. And this entire job is full of some of my favorite Jack Kirby visuals ever. Again, look at the armaments, look at the scepter, look at this. Look at this double page spread. It's just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And Roz very quietly said, "Oh, no, dear. That's the one that's not for sale. That's mine. That's Jack's love letter to me. It's a love story. The Pact. Read it. It's brilliant." Right there, that splash page tells you. He said, "That's Jack and that's me. That's Jack and Roz on that cover." And it was so sweet when she said, "Oh no, dear. Oh no, dear. That's not for sale. That's my copy. That story's mine. That story, that's our love story. That's that's Jack's love letter to me." So Jack's love letter to his wife is New Gods number 7, The Pact. That's how important that stuff was to Jack. And I was just in awe. I just carefully flipped through the pages, stood in awe of them, assembled them, and handed them back to Roz. I was so glad that I just got to encounter it. I bought 4 full issues of Jack's Fourth World stuff that day. What a blast. What a great memory. That stuff meant a lot to Jack. It meant a lot to all of us. Those characters are going to continue to shine, going to continue to resonate. But I think there's a lot to parse from this story. The Kirby Chronicles, I guarantee you, they will continue. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for dropping by, hanging out, taking this ride with me. You guys know that when I'm not here, I'm all over social media. On X, I am Robert Liefeld, RobertLiefeld. I have a blue check. It signifies that it is really me that you are encountering with. And lately, boy, you're a hot group of people. I reposted a clip of the throne room battle from Last Jedi, and a lot of angry people came at me. I happen to think that is a breathtaking piece of cinema. I think it's brilliant. And I had heard from some people that I was hanging out with. Oh, people nitpick the action choreography. What? It's such a blast, but it doesn't stop everybody from yelling at me. Nobody, no place of, if you ask me, the internet of all the social media is the ones that everyone yell at each other the most and they get the hottest with each other is on X. If you can survive it and you want to survive it together with me, we can lock arms, hang out with me, Robert Liefeld, RobertLiefeld, blue check on X. That's me. On Instagram, I'm answering questions and incorporating a lot of your hot takes, and I'm giving you my hot takes, and you're super mad at me because I think X character can beat X character, even though you claim that Red Hulk could never lay a hand on Green Hulk, and I'm like, I have the comic book right here where he did. I have the comic book where Wonder Woman trounced Superman. What are you talking about? It's fun because we're all coming at it from a different place. But my guy Scotty, he's assembled a bunch of fun clips. I just interact with them in real time. I base my comic book experience from 1974. Some characters like the Flash, I wasn't aware they've leveled up to these cosmic level beings. Okay. But I'm always going to kind of bring my own experience, but we're going to have fun. The whole idea, it's just a game. We're doing a lot of games, a lot of quiz games, a lot of choose this, choose that. They're little skits. And in the meantime, I give you previews of the stuff that I'm doing, especially in my stories. I'm giving you links. Follow me on Instagram. I'm Rob Liefeld, ROBLIEFELD. Blue check tells you, again, that's me reading your replies, your comments, your DMs, uh, your messages. Love you guys. Love seeing you over there. Hang with us. Instagram, Rob Liefeld, blue check. On TikTok, I got the blue check. I'm real Rob Liefeld. Real Rob Liefeld. Okay, I couldn't get Rob Liefeld in time. I'm real Rob Liefeld as opposed to not real Rob Liefeld. And a lot of the same skits, a lot of the same games are going on over there. I love interacting with you guys, expanding, meeting so many new people. The interactivity, the interconnectivity that the social media portals provide us is just a thrill to me. I love being around younger voices and younger opinions because it gives me more to chew on and more to think of and more that I need to consider, because as an artist, I'm always trying to grow and stretch. And so much of this interaction, whether it's on X or on Instagram or on TikTok, helps me do that. So real Rob Liefeld, blue check on TikTok. I will look for you there. I have a group. It's called Rob Liefeld, Marvel Extreme and Beyond on Facebook. It's a group. Come join us. We have a great time. We hang out. No trolls. No flame wars, in case you know what that means. We keep it up. We keep it fun. Every episode of this show gets a dedicated post where you can weigh in, discuss the stuff that you like and you didn't like, or you interpret. We have great artists sharing great art. We have great collections. We have offers and deals that are going to be made known to you only through that group. Join Rob Liefeld, Marvel Extreme and Beyond. I would love to see you over there on Facebook. So it's Facebook, it's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's X. I'm everywhere, and I want to be hanging out with you guys. So join me when I do live streams. We are dedicated to do eBay, and eBay is not always under my name. So follow my account, mainly on my Instagram story or on my X feed. I will give you a link when I go on eBay, because that's not my account. But on Whatnot, get that app, download it. Follow me on Whatnot. Follow Rob Liefeld. You'll be alerted when I go live, and you'll get all manner of fresh new items. You'll get signed, like this book. This book doesn't exist in your comic store. This specific cover is only a cover that you can obtain from me online. This is Youngblood 4. Youngblood 4 is not in your stores for 3 more weeks, but you can get it signed from me. In my that's a blood splatter chisel right there. That is a blood splatter chisel. That is the Liefeld blood splatter chisel. I'm holding it up. This is the variant. This is there's some mysterious stuff going on in Youngblood 4. I want you to check it out. It'll be in your stores, but not this cover. This cover will never make it to the comic store. This is something that you get from me exclusively via a live stream. I would love for you to join us. And I mean, like this Brigade, this Battlestone cover, Tyler Kirkham drew it. I inked it. It was so fun inking Tyler Kirkham. This is a sketch line art Brigade remaster. All manner of badass people did this. Again, this cover did not make it to stores. This comic book did. This comic book that features the work of Victor Bogdanovich, Dietrich Smith, Marat Michaels, Ryan Kincaid, Dan Panosian, Ed Pisker, Philip Tan, Carl Alster, all of this in here, but this cover did not make it. This one that I inked over Tyler Kirkham didn't make it, but you can get it from me on the Whatnot portal when we go live. Follow me on Whatnot. You'll be alerted when we go live, and I can't wait to hang with you there, because we have got a lot of original signatures. Like you saw, I'm going to show this one more time because I did. This is actually a really good one. This is a blood splatter chisel. Okay, when CGC, so much, we have a CGC component as well. You can do that through us. We've done like 5,000, 6,000, 6,000 books to CGC through my Whatnot. CGC identifies this as a sketch. They don't call it a signature. When you get it graded, it says with a sketch by Rob Liefeld. That's what they think that is. That's so cool. Anyway, follow me on Whatnot. Be alerted when I go live. We generally do 2 times a week, but also we're going to be doing eBay regularly. So catch us there. We are just, I love, again, reaching out direct to consumer is where I live. That is my heartbeat. These last couple of years, I believe it has been insurmountable in the evolution of my career. So I am a big live stream social media guy. Love to see you guys. As always, guys, hope you're doing well. Hope your emotional, your physical, your mental, and your spiritual well-being are exactly where you need it to be. Life is a grind. I'm going to say it every week, because every week it's still a grind. More pressure, more decisions. The world is getting crazier. All of these social media aspects that I lay out to you, they're all being used to drive us absolutely crazy, nuts. Chaos it feels like is what they want to sow among us the most. I appreciate when you, if this podcast is part of your escape, is part of the way that you get off the treadmill, I'm just so thrilled that I can be a part of it. Go read a great comic, a great book. Go see the movie that you've been wanting to see, that streaming show. Go to that diner, that high-end Italian restaurant, that steakhouse. Get that dessert. Spend time with friends. My buddies that I meet with about 6 times a year. We just put it on the books for a couple of weeks. Again, that'll be a great morning. Great hang. Just catching up with friends of mine that go back, almost 45 years. Take your mental health and your spiritual well-being and your physical and your emotional well-being as seriously as you possibly can. Stay the course. Give love, be loved, and give love. That's my big motto. And we're going to continue to root for you. Yes, I had my big cup. No, it didn't make it here. My wife gave me a giant Valentine's Day, giant mega cup. I should have taken it out of the refrigerator and brought it here, but of course I didn't. 2 big, boom, fist bumps into this blue Yeti mic. Wishing you all the best, guys. Don't leave me. The finger goes right here, right there. I'm going to be right there. Come back and get me. We will most definitely. Don't leave me. Come back. Most definitely. Absolutely. And inevitably, we're going to talk again real soon.